given the environment that you grew up in and not seeing a healthy marriage or relationship, this is a twofold question.
Mhm.
Did you have aspirations to be married? If so, when? And what were your ideas around being a parent and parenting? Welcome back to The Motherly Shift in our conversation with Beetle, as we're peeling back the layers of generational trauma and resilience. Our guest takes us on an intimate journey of transformation, from a child who felt invisible into a mother determined to create a different narrative for her own children. Today, we're exploring the intricate art of intentional parenting. How do you break cycles of neglect? What does it take to create a home filled with communication, empathy, and genuine connection when you've never experienced it yourself? Our guest reveals the raw, honest strategies she's developed to ensure her children feel seen, heard, and deeply loved. This episode is a master class in emotional intelligence, healing, and the extraordinary power of choosing a different path. We'll dive into the challenges of parenting with trauma in your rearview mirror, the importance of therapy, and the beautiful, messy process of creating the family you always wish you had. Prepare for a conversation that will challenge, inspire, and remind you of the incredible resilience of the human spirit. Beetle, given the environment that you grew up in and not seeing a healthy marriage or relationship, this is a twofold question.
Mhm.
Did you have aspirations to be married? If so, when? And what were your ideas around being a parent and parenting?
Yes. Okay. Did I have aspirations? Yes, but they didn't come until like later, like probably college, not even the beginning of college, right? As you
Mhm,
start thinking about your future, right? And I
mhm,
will say, when you're young, you're like, oh, I want to be this, I want to be that, da 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 da. I always thought, yeah, I'd like to have a kid. I thought I wanted to adopt at first. I was like, oh, I'd
mhm.
like to adopt a child. What I absolutely knew is I was not going to have a child until I could comfortably afford
Mhm.
one, and two, be in a marriage. Right.
Yeah.
I said, I'm not going to have a kid out of wedlock. That's because I want to try to do it the right way. And then I also wanted to make sure that when I did have a child, I didn't have to struggle and they didn't have to struggle. Now,
Right.
that doesn't mean anything can happen, right? Of course,
Yeah,
I know that
absolutely.
of all people, I know that. But the
Yeah.
other thing I can say is survival for me looks different than the next person, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I can survive off of little to nothing because I know how to do it, right?
Mhm.
Um, but I definitely knew one, you need to have your education, you need to have a job, you need to have some money in the bank, um, preferably some investments, da 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 da. Then you go and
Right.
you know, do the marriage thing, have the child, ba 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 ba. Um, yeah, so that's the way I that's the way I thought it would work out. But the reality is when you grow up without not a representation, but any sort of understanding of what a good relationship looks like,
Yeah.
um, you go into something that's not good for you. And I literally married my father, not the abusive part, not the
Yeah.
physically abusive part. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I have wonderful children. Um, and I have gotten compliments from the time they were in elementary school, the daycare
Mhm.
providers, Miss Beetle, you are the best parent. They are so
Right.
lucky to have you. Ba 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 ba. And it's a lot of work and I get exhausted.
Mhm.
And when I don't have that support, like I said, I didn't have people that I could just be like, oh, can you come get X, Y, and Z for a little bit so I can get a break?
Right.
You know? I mean, I want to
Because
say
at
this
that
even
point, you don't have a lot of family that is in your support system.
I don't. Now, don't get me
Mhm.
wrong. I have a lot of family. but
Mhm.
none that were in my support system. And if we saw each other, it was because I was putting myself and my kids in their space and the opposite wasn't happening. And, and I would do that quite frequently. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I don't have the space and time because I am the single parent. And then two, if there's no reciprocity, what's the point? Right.
Right.
So I had to kind of change that too. I'm like, okay, why am I going to this? I mean, I literally on Saturdays will go drive around and visit all my older cousins and this and that. And then I'd go over the bridge and visit the other ones here and there. And it was nothing for me to go visit somebody. And then I'm realizing, I mean, it was to the point that when we moved out of that area, my daughter was about 6 when we moved to our another house. And
Mhm.
she's very emotionally intelligent. This
Mhm.
girl, I love her piece. And she was like, "Mom, how come our family doesn't come visit us?" And I told her, I said, "Karis, I can't answer that question." I said, "I can't speak on behalf of other people. But what
Yeah.
I can tell you is that have we gone here, there? Or have we done it several times?" Yes. I said, all I can do is tell you is I've tried to put you and myself in other people's space. I said, and you have to understand that you can't control what other people do. You know what I mean?
Right.
And unfortunately, what that all felt like was nothing more than the same, we're not a priority. The same thing as when I was a child. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Mhm.
Because these same people have no problem visiting some other family that, you know what I mean?
Yes.
That and oftentimes you have to pass my house to get to that family.
Mhm.
So it's like, okay. But I can't do anything about that either. Again, separate yourself from the decisions that other people make, you
Right.
know. So
What
yeah.
things are you intentional about now that you are a parent and you have a son who's older than your daughter?
Mhm.
What things do you intentionally do with and for them separately and collectively?
Oh. You say separately because I love having personal time with them.
Mhm.
First of all, I'm very intentional about our environment and our space.
Mhm.
And when I say I run a tight ship, I'm not talking about a tight ship in the house. It's hard for you to break the barrier to get into my house, right? I don't just let anybody in my house. But when you come in my house, you better bet you can kick your feet up, open the refrigerator, find what you need, have
Mhm.
fun. And also one of the things that I taught my kids very, very early on was one, I will not lie to you.
Mhm.
Two, I'm not going to keep things from you. I may not tell you something immediately if it's not age appropriate. I said, but this is your life and you live it along with me. Right.
Mhm.
And that was a direct result of the fact that I felt like I was not a part of my family at all. You know what I mean? So, um, there was this book called A Child Called It. Now that's kind of aggressively on one side because this kid he was a biological child, but he was made to sit in the basement, ate off of paper plates when all the rest of the family and the kids are upstairs having a nice dinner. He burning his hands on the stove when he did something wrong when no one else is getting in trouble. I can
Mhm.
identify with how that must have felt, minus all of the aggressive like abuse, because again,
Right.
I was not a bad child, so I couldn't have been abused. I just was a good child. But I
Mhm.
told my kids, one, don't lie in my house. Don't lie to me. I said, before you lie to me, just don't say anything. Right.
Right.
Um, because I know it's hard sometimes to tell a truth. Or yeah, it's just hard, I know, to tell the truth. But just don't say anything.
Right.
And then the other thing is you can talk about whatever you want in this space. In this space. And so my daughter's very good with that. We talk about absolutely anything. Matter of fact, she's like, Mom, if someone walked in here right now and heard this conversation, we just laugh. And there are conversations that every family should have. I mean, don't be ashamed of who you are, what you want, and what you feel like. And even so, there are times where I'm like, hey, you know what? All right, yeah, she or he will say something like, you know what? Let's talk about it, but I think this may be beyond me. So what about if we bring this person in and see if
Mhm.
because that's that person's specialty or whatever, you know what I mean?
Right.
Um, I'm very intentional also about everybody having something to do that makes them happy and that only they do, like their
Mm.
own personal joy.
Right.
Um, my daughter plays the violin and the piano. She loves to read. My son, he likes to do his little stuff on the computer. He likes to draw. You know
Hmm.
me, I do guitar and I do my band. And I was doing some jeeping stuff, and
Hmm.
they know when I do that, that is that is my personal space,
That's your
right?
happy space.
That's my happy space. Absolutely. And I think everybody should have their own happy space. And we do. Um, yeah. And I just keep my house. And I have to say, after all of my immediate family passed, I remember sitting in my car and I pulled up to the driveway and I just kind of sat there. I like sitting in my car sometimes. And you know why? Because it feels like a cocoon.
Hmm.
Remember I said I don't know what cover feels like. That's
Yeah.
sometimes comforting to me. Just sit in a car.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and I remember sometimes I may just sit and do a little word game and then I'll get out and come in the house. But I remember saying, wow. I was like, God, you know what? This may be my first opportunity to feel like I'm to find out what peace is like, you
Mm.
know, and to
Yeah.
really understand and try to find out who I am as a person, without being pulled into this or this person did that. He stole this, which and even that I shut that down early. I'm like that. Whatever relationship you have for your son with your son is between you two.
Hmm.
Please keep me out of it.
Right.
You know. So
Did you and your mom have any meaningful conversation or exchange before her passing? Did you
mm,
get to any kind of closure or resolution with her?
no, I don't know if she was capable of it. You know what I mean? My mother was just like me. Remember, I said no one taught me how to deal with my emotions, and
Yeah. Yeah.
or it's the exact same with her. She was, like I said, product of an affair, lived with her cousin and her cousin's mother. Um, so she wasn't really guided there. And what she says to me is that she really kind of was more like a Cinderella there, where she did a lot of work.
Hmm.
She wasn't really, and I'm not saying treat it fairly, but treat it differently, not in a
Right.
good way. So I don't know if she could have had that conversation. She probably would have wanted it, I guess, but I was not really interested in
You
it, to
would
be
have
honest
had
with
to
you.
initiate it. She wasn't going to initiate it.
No, she wasn't. And I think, and again, if she wanted to have that conversation she had at my surprise birthday party with that other person, she would have said that to
That was
me.
her opportunity. Hmm.
Yeah. But
Do
I
you
think
think
it was
she knew
hard for
you
her.
well? Do you think she knew you well?
No, no. And I say no because, again, we didn't talk. We didn't sit down and have conversations. We didn't
Right.
eat at a table. We didn't do things together. I was always out of the house. I remember at one point she was like, "You're gonna have to stay in the house and help me clean up and do some dishes." And my first question to her was, "Are you sending me to college?" I
Hmm.
said, "Oh, so you're gonna pay for me to go to college somewhere then?" And I knew she couldn't. I was like, "No, what I'm working on is my future." And I
Hmm.
think I just walked out the door because I'd be darned if I was going to try to leave my future in somebody else's hand like that. You know what I mean? That would have never happened.
Right.
Uh, and when you say, like you said earlier, something about you think that I was making up for, oh gosh, making up for the things that, like being an overachiever because I was making up for something. And I
Right. Or
don't think that was
compensating for
me.
what you didn't receive
Yeah,
or have.
compensating.
Yeah.
To me, I never saw in my mind, I never saw it as compensation. I
Hmm.
saw it as I need, I wasn't compensating. I need to move in this direction. I need to move as far away from what my norm is right now as I
Yeah.
possibly can, and whatever that means. And I will tell you, I had a doctor, physician, general practitioner who was asking me what was going on. Hey, yeah, X, Y, and Z. Yes, this, yes, that, blah, blah, blah. And then he said, okay, so where are you from? And I told him, and I was, just short answer. Boom, one answer. Blah, 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 blah. And he was like, oh, you got any siblings? Yes. Well, what do they do? Which one? And I was like, which one? And then he was like, I don't know, start your little one. I was like, okay, he's deceased. Oh, what happened to him? I told him that. What about the
Uh-huh.
older one? I said, he's at what I call his timeshare. He's like, oh, really? Where is that? I said, I said, jail. And he's like, jail. I was like, yeah, timeshare somewhere periodically like to go, right?
Uh-huh.
You a couple of times a year or whatever, you go there. I said, I call it as timeshare. And then he goes and he takes his glasses off and he puts them down and he says, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. I need to understand. He said, but you went here and then you have 2 master's degrees and you blah, blah, blah,
Uh-huh.
blah. I said, yeah, yeah. He said, I need to understand why you made the decisions that you made. I said, I don't know. No, 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 no. You have to know, right? And he literally was trying to force me into answering some question that I really truly didn't have a good answer for. He said,
Yeah.
you guys grew up in the same situation with the same parents and da 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 da, yet they're here and you're there. What
Yep.
happened? You have to know. And I finally, and he kept going and what he told me, he's like, but let me help you. First, let me help you understand. I used to be a psychiatrist.
Uh-huh.
He said, and you should be studied. He said, you need to be studied. And I've
I
had people say,
totally
you need to write a
agree.
book.
I
And I'm
totally
like,
agree.
yes. And I've had people say, you need to write a book. You should do speeches. You should
Huh?
mentor, blah, 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 blah. But I finally, because he was getting on my nerves, I'm like, I don't know. Because again, at that time, I was not consciously thinking. I didn't have the capacity to consciously think about, oh, well, blah, blah, blah. I just knew run as far as I can in that direction. And what that means is do everything I can to get a degree or to get a scholarship or to have a job. And so what I did was I told him, I said, I don't know. I was running. I was running. He was like, what do you mean running? And I was running as far away as I possibly could. That's it. That's all I can tell you. Running away from where I was. And whatever that meant is exactly what I did. I did the opposite of what I saw and what I was sitting in. You know what I mean? That's all I can tell you. And that's when he kept saying, you need to be studied. Seriously, you really need to be studied. And it's just, that's just what it was. Running, Kim. I'm running, you know?
Is there anything you wish your mom did know about you?
That's a hard question to ask because for so long, again, it's just been normalized that I can't, and I hate saying she didn't care about me, but I never even put thought into what she would want to know about me because, again, there was never a possibility that she would want to hear or know or even be interested in it. And even if she was interested, if she had time, it would be allocated elsewhere, right? So that never crossed my mind. The answer is I don't have an answer for that. I don't have an answer for that.
Mm,
She saw my kids. She found it took her a minute to get over the fact that I was actually a mother. She's like, yeah,
yeah.
I still can't believe you're a mom. You're a mom. Because I was always just the athlete, right?
Right.
Um, and I never, and again, because I grew up where I grew up,
Mm-hmm.
and the people who I knew who were in relationships got pregnant without
Mm-hmm.
being married. And, that's basically what it was.
Mm-hmm.
I did not want that. So I wasn't in relationships in high school. I did go to prom with somebody and then, we dated when I was after I graduated from
Yeah.
college, we dated again a little bit. But then, even I kind of was like, yeah, I don't think this is going to work right now because I was really just trying to get myself together. A
Right.
wonderful person.
Yeah.
But again, and then of course I did have, an uncle and I did have an older brother. And if anybody even thought to look my way, you know, I think they just shut him down. Um, yeah. So, I mean, first, I don't think I had an opportunity to date if I wanted to date, but when I did, I just went to prom and, so I just, yeah, yeah. So, Kim, I don't know. I don't know what I would want her to know. I mean, honestly, I don't have an answer because,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I didn't have a mom relationship with my mother. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't. I did not.
So in contrast with that, now being the mother of a daughter,
Hmm.
what do you want your daughter to know about you?
She knows everything about me. Like I said, I don't hide. She knows.
Mhm.
I tell her. She knows my story. Um, she sees she sees the still current effects of. Uh, I hate to say it, but one of the things, the way I say to her is, I was like, parents can fuck up a child,
Mm-hmm.
and I literally still suffer from the effects of not only just not being parented or loved and all of that, but even the trauma that I've been through. And so even with my youngest brother's death, no
Mm-hmm.
one helped me do it. Again, I say the child called it, but I'm the mushroom in the dark cold corner.
Mm-hmm.
But who do you think everybody pushed up to the front to do everything for his funeral, to bind the
Yeah.
burial plot, to put clothes on his body? My father didn't give me a dime. My mother didn't give me a dime. Um, my brother didn't give me a dime. Nobody made a decision. I even remember when I was, the mortician that comes to the house with the book of caskets.
Mm-hmm.
And she's sitting there, and of course she's numb. And, he gives it to me, and I'm like, okay. I look at it, she just kind of rolled her eyes. And at that point, I was getting irritated because I lost all my hair from the stress.
Yeah.
Um, and then I'm looking at her, I was like, you can't even help me decide a casket to put your son in. You know what I mean? And she
Yeah.
wouldn't do it. And she wouldn't do it. So there you go again, where I'm like, okay. That's why I'm like, I just shut down. I'm like, dude, whatever. And then when that was over, I just wanted to cut ties with everything and everybody. And it wasn't like, and the one person that I actually kind of at the time got a hug from or was able to kind of lay against, I had to ask. I had to ask. I was like, hey, do you mind? Can I just, can I just lay against your arms? You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
people from where I come from, they don't, are you okay? What do you need right now? And
Right.
and I have a, because I'm in counseling. I love I love having a counselor. You know what I mean? And I
Mm-hmm.
have since the day I started in 1992. But
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend, and I told her how wonderful it was because this friend came over and when we were gonna go somewhere, she puts her hand on my head. She's like, "Okay, what do you need right now? You need me to drive? You need anything? You need a hug? Do we need to da 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 da? You okay? Ba 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 ba." And I kid you not, it's the first time, right? Other than no, there's one other person I will tell you that's kind of like that, and you know
Mm-hmm.
her as well.
Mm-hmm.
But and let's say this person's name is Sylvia, right? And
Okay.
so now our motto is everybody needs a Sylvia in your life, right? And I
Absolutely.
told her, and she came back and I told her, I said, because that is that's empathy, that's care, that's concern,
Right.
that's you taking yourself out of your comfort zone and just committing yourself to what is it that you need right now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of just, well, this is what I'm gonna do because this is what I think you need, which
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes is not the right situation, right? So
Right.
yeah.
Do you ever feel, I have like 300 questions at the same time, but
Yeah.
how do you guard against allowing your past and your experiences to infiltrate your now uh, core family and the relationship with your daughter? Do you ever feel that certain things rear up and you have to catch yourself and remind yourself this is something I want different with my family and my daughter?
Somewhat. And I say somewhat because I have worked dang hard to make sure that our life is different, right? But I'm a product of my environment, my character, the way I approach things, my method of delivery, all of that is seated in where I came from, right?
Right.
And so one of the things that I have to work on, and I say work on because the reality is it's not part of it is from where I came from. And I say that because and you know me, I'm very black and white. I set my boundaries. I allow you to know what my boundaries are. And it's not about, stirring up conflict. I have a right to establish a boundary just like you do, right?
Hmm.
Um, and so if you don't know what my boundaries are, clearly you're going to cross them. But before you cross them, I'm going to let you know what they are because I'm very specific about it, right?
Right.
But one of the things that I have to understand, especially coming from the career field I retired from, you know, if you make the wrong decision, you say the wrong things, people can lose lives, right? So
Mhm.
again, very black and white, very to
Right.
the point. And so one of the things I realized is my daughter is very empathetic, and she has been from the time she was little, right?
Mhm.
And I learned from her. But one of the things to do is I sit down. If I have to have a conversation with her sometimes,
Uh-huh.
or if she wants to talk about something and it can be tricky, or if
Mhm.
I think that I know what my opinion is about it and this is how I would say it, I kid you not, Kim, I have to first go sit down, close the door, think
Mhm.
about how to deliver it. And I've gotten to the point, don't you? And I told her too. I said, all right, listen, I chat GP this conversation. I
Want to
chat
mess this up, so
GPT.
I asked for
Uh,
reinforcements.
ex- exactly. Because she's sensitive. And I mean, I understand people are sensitive, but I'm not as sensitive because I've been so, scarred up. And so, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
even when I was in that career field, they were like, does anything bother you? I'm like, I'm human. Absolutely, things
Yeah.
bother me. But relatively speaking, oh, it takes a lot for anybody in this organization to ruffle my feathers coming from where
Right.
I came from. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so, what I have to do is learn that my method of delivery with her has to be a little different, you know? Um, and so yeah, and I'll go say, hey, I want to have this conversation. These are the points I want to make, blah, 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 blah. And please make it so that it is charismatic and empathetic and da 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 and inconsiderate. I mean, inconsiderate of her, blah, 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 you know?
Right.
And then I
Right.
literally have the piece of paper in front of me. And then I tell her, I said, listen, I understand that I can, and I told her, I understand I can be X, Y, and Z, but I'm
Mhm.
trying. I'm
Right.
trying. You know what I mean? Because I am trying.
But
Um,
she's also a teenager. So what does conflict look like between the two of you? Because although I know her to be an amazing and wonderful child, she's
mhm,
still a teenager with going through hormonal changes and
mhm.
society influences. Like, have you all had any conflict and how do you deal with that?
Yeah, so we had one big blowout, and I yelled at her, and she got upset and stomped across the street to the neighbor to the neighbors.
And told on
And
you.
yeah, and it was fine. It was fine, and called the dad and whatever. Well, I said, "Yep, okay." But also the good thing is I can call her dad and be like, "Hey, here's the situation. This
Hmm.
is what I'm having an issue with because for whatever reason, and it worked the same with me.
Hmm.
Children are more responsive to that father, right?
They can be,
Um,
absolutely.
Yeah, especially if he's like, alpha male, blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
Hmm.
And so, and hers is. So, and he'll say something and she'll normally correct it. But typically, honestly, it got to the it has gotten to the point, and when I say gotten to the point, we rarely have arguments. My thing with
Hmm.
her is she'll be like, I know. And I'm like, well, if you know, why are we having this conversation? And then so I get to the point where I'm just like, you know what? Okay, whatever, whatever.
Yeah.
All right. You good. Because I told her before, I said, my philosophy is you learn better by doing. I
Right.
said, and I'm not going to expend. And I told her, I have a limited capacity as a single parent, and I'm a disabled person, yada yada. I don't have the capacity to deal with things like I used to. And so
Right.
what I have to do is I really have to be cautious about how I allocate and what I allocate my time and energy on. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And sometimes it may be something dealing with her or even him. I'll be like, okay, you'll figure it out. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And I literally just throw my hands up as long as it's not anything that's unsafe, which it rarely, and I can't even say she would do something that's unsafe. You know what I mean?
Right.
Um, but even when she was little, the babysitter like, Miss Beetle, she's standing on the wheel to the stroller and it's not locked. I'm like, okay, are you gonna come get it? Nope. When she falls, she'll know that that's not the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Same thing, she's walking on the ledge to the window. And it was, we had a couch that was up against it, and she was little walking on the window ledge on the inside.
Uh-huh.
Get down. Miss Beetle, she's gonna fall. And she'll know that she shouldn't walk on the ledge to the window.
Right.
you know? I mean, I'm not gonna keep going over and over and over and over. You'll figure it out, you know?
Yeah.
So, and I think that's a healthy thing. Like, I have my mother and my brother had a horrible codependent relationship, and she would continue to try to save him out of
Mhm.
all these things that she couldn't save him out of, instead of letting him fall hard on his face. And then guess
Right.
what? Both she and he died unhappy without resolving whatever they were trying to resolve. You know what I
Right.
mean? I'm
Right.
like, dude, like, you just wasted all of that time. Like, no. So I can't be that person. And I'm not, because I've seen it. And I see so many parents do that who just can't let the child figure it out.
Yes.
And a lot of instances, especially when they want to be I know
They
it
know
all. Okay.
everything. That is so hard to do. I mean, we've talked about it before, but I have young adults living on their own now. And me and my husband look at the kids and we're like, in so many words, we could tell them how to be successful, how to navigate this, how to do X, Y, and Z. But would they even listen? So you're absolutely
Yeah.
right. Like you keep throwing that safety net out there, they're not going to appreciate it. They'll actually get pissed at you. Why did you put this net out here? I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to go ahead,
Yep.
knock yourself out. I'm just watch
Yep.
over here on the side. But it's
That's
easier
it.
said than done because it's like if you just let me step in. But I'm learning.
Yeah.
I'm getting there.
You've done wonderful though with it, I think, honestly. You really have. I admire the way you do it as well. Because again, you do. You just step back, you be like, okay,
Yeah,
all right. Because you give it and the thing is not like I don't go into it initially saying I'm not helping you. I
right.
am out. This is what I'll tell you. I'm a three strikes you're out person, basically. And in
Mhm.
some instances, two, and I'm done. Because first one, shame on you. Second one, shame on me. But and in, most instances I'll give you three strikes, you're out. And after that, I'm like, okay. And look, and
Yeah,
I've done it across the board, you know what I mean? Either I'm talking about something with someone and they keep bringing up the same subject. I'm like, okay, we talked about this already three times. You know, my opinion is not going to change at this point. This is no longer a topic I'm willing to discuss with you. You know what I
right.
mean? So
You know,
same thing with my kids.
one thing being a mom has shown me, and yeah, I think I did first learn it because I became a mom, but
Mhm.
I have um, expanded it to people in general. What I have learned and I try to do is love people right where they are and
Absolutely.
just take as much of the good that you can take from that relationship without, you know, thinking you can go and change the person or manipulate something about them that would be more satisfying and pleasing to you. And the thing about being a mom is that that's the area of being humbled because you're feeling like, well, I'm speaking for myself. I would feel like um, I've created these little individuals. I know them better than anyone. Um, if they would just listen to me and they would let me help. But the reality is, it's all these little individuals, these individual personalities that God created under His command for to do the things He wants them to do that may not line up with what I want and how I see life. And it just gets to be really challenging. And I take that into my own relationship with my own mom too. You know,
Mm.
I just have to love her where she is, accept the person that she is, try to empathize by putting myself in her shoes because I'm hoping my daughter will do the same thing for me. Because you pointed out correctly earlier in the conversation, none of us are perfect at this. And we could really F up a kid if we're, if we're not careful and if we're not intentional
Yes,
with, you know, having healthy relationships, open communication, trust and honesty, like, it's so critical. And
it is.
but it can be really hard. And I think
Not
that's
only hard, but exhausting. It is
and it
exhausting.
is
Like I said, I think a lot of times I'm like, I'm just too exhausted to even deal with this right now. Again, because I don't have that I can't pull a plug. and
Right.
somebody else is going to plug it for me. You know what I mean? I cannot do that. And so it is just exhausting.
It can
Um,
be. It really
yeah.
can be. Especially if you have to go to Chat GPT to go have a conversation with you. And you know what though? That's not a bad idea. I might have to because I feel like with my daughter, and I think we have a pretty good relationship. We have a good open communication, but I do think I'm not as sensitive as she would like me to be in
Mhm.
having certain conversations with her. I can see it on her body language, I can see it in her face. And then sometimes I do have this outer body experience where I listen to what I said. It's like, gosh, did you have to say it that way? Like maybe you should take a pause and think first,
Oh
or
my
go to
gosh, that's funny.
ChatGPT and clean this up before you
Yes.
get that thought or idea, but
Yep. Put it on a scroll. I'd be like,
yeah,
okay, I'm ready.
yeah, let's put this on pause for a minute. I'll be right back. So
Yes, yes. It has helped me, and I think, like I said, I enjoy it. I've only done it like 3 times, but because again, we don't have to have too many terribly hard conversations and it's normally not a hard conversation. It's normally
right,
a conversation where I have to check myself
right.
on the topic or how I deliver. And it's normally my delivery,
Mm,
and I have to tell her sometimes, I can't get outside of myself and turn around and look back and see what it looks like, or
yeah.
know what it sounds like. It's just who I am. And so
You
yeah, so
tell you
I like
something.
that.
You've heard
I'm
that
sorry.
saying. You've heard that saying, thank God you don't look like what you've been through.
Oh yes.
I swear, and I think it's even coming across in this episode. You don't even sound like what you've been through. You are magnanimous and an amazing person. Like I started out by saying it and I'm going to double down on it. One of my favorite people, and your outlook
Oh,
on life and even the things you've gone through is, you know, really, positive and thoughtful, very matter of fact. And I'm just excited that we had the opportunity to have this conversation. Can you speak to a little bit, and without going into too much detail, but for those listening who may or may not be open to therapy,
mhm.
because I'm giving a lot of credit to the fact that you've done the work, as you said, that you sought
Oh
out
my gosh.
therapy, that you've had
Yes.
conversations, at least with a professional that you couldn't have with your family or your mom, etc. Can you speak a little bit to that to help encourage others listening that that is a great road to travel in instances like this?
Absolutely. So one of the things I've always felt like is that it is so important to have an unbiased party who has been educated in the way of the mind to help you sort through the things that you are having trouble with. And I say that because when we try to resolve our own issues, we are answering the questions that we're asking our own selves
Mm-hmm.
the same way each time because we only know that, right? We
Right.
only know this is the answer. And you, without even realizing you don't have the breadth or the depth of information. Like I told you, I'm an all knowing person. And
Mm-hmm.
so I talked to my counselor. I'm like, hey, so yeah, so when the hippocampus injects a thought into my amygdala and then it goes to the prefrontal cortex. Oh, okay. And so I actually gave a brief at one of my jobs because again, I have put in so much work. And even one of my therapists one time was like, she was like, man, you basically just finished the sentences. And I'm not bragging, but the reality is I have read the book about, the lady who created EMDR. I have done the body keep score. I have put myself in guided meditation classes. And so I gave a brief at one of my jobs about emotional intelligence and what I was really um, because I went into the place and I have to say attitudes were bad.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just reacting in a bad way to customers and clients. And I remember telling one lady after the client left, I'm like, hey, you can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And what I realized, I was like, just like me. These are people that came from similar backgrounds, probably gone through things. And what I explained to them is that, hey, in the middle of your head, you have basically a red phone and a black phone. And the red phone goes straight to, you know, the big guy in the sky, or not the guy in the sky, but basically whoever's making that big decision. That's the emergency phone. And I
Right.
said, and your hippocampus stores memory from the rest of from wherever you've been, whatever your experiences were. I said, and whatever, when it injects a memory, it rings either the black phone or the red phone. I
Hmm.
said, and then when it brings that red phone, it doesn't go to what you call the hippocampus, the hippocampus is like standing up on the castle on the tower looking and seeing, oh, I see some smoke over there. Is that somebody grilling out, or is that, something on fire? You
Right.
have time to think and process that, right? But
Hmm.
if you don't send it, if it goes to like if it goes to the black phone, it goes to your hippocampus. If it goes to the red phone, it's
Hmm.
going straight to your sympathetic nervous system, and you are just off and growling and fussing at everybody and blah 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 blah. And so
Right.
what I explain to them is just like us. So when I talk about counseling, because we have senses that are affected by anything that hits it, whether it's smoke, like again, if you were in a fire, you smell smoke, you're off and running, you're triggered. If you
Right.
see something with your eyes, if you hear something. And so what happens is you have to learn how to reprocess and relearn how to take those things and and how do I say control them in essence and
Right.
control them to the best of your ability. um and and you got to put the work in, and unfortunately it's hard work, and you have to walk into the discomfort sometimes. I say sometimes because even me sometimes I don't feel like walking into the discomfort.
Right.
No, I'm not doing it today. But then there's times I'm like, okay, come on, we're gonna go do this because this is not gonna. I am not gonna be defeated by this today, you know. And then
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I can't. But I think again that third person who, and again, it is gonna be. And I will tell you this. I'm gonna give you a warning. There are some therapists who just stink. Okay,
Yeah.
who just
Yeah.
stink. Sit down and think about what type of therapist do you think is gonna be best for you.
Yeah.
Um,
Let's
is it
dig
gonna be
into that
one that
just a
looks?
bit because that's an
Uh-huh.
excellent point. It is almost like, this is a relationship you're going to have. So I would
Absolutely.
say to everybody, as you're looking for a therapist, as you're looking for professional help, don't be discouraged by the first one didn't work, the second one didn't work, but be very clear and from your own experience, because I have not been to therapy, so I want you to weigh in on this, but I'm just agreeing that don't let one bad experience or one therapist or counselor turn you off from therapy and counseling in total.
Exactly. And it's okay when you first recognize that it's not working. And I told one lady, I was like, "Hey, you know what? I just don't think this is working for me. I leave here feeling worse than I felt when I came in. I don't feel like I'm progressing. Da da da. Oh, give me some more chance. Give me a couple." And I said, "Okay, you know what? We'll try 2 more months." And then finally, what I realized is, and she told me, she was like, "Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to help answer some of the questions you have because she doesn't have the experiences that I went through." Right.
Right,
So
right.
what I started doing is researching my therapist to see if I can find out what they went through or if they went through. So I want a therapist who's been through trauma, right? My
Yeah.
current therapist, she's been through trauma. And I told her, I said, with all due respect, I am going to tell you that I did a deep dive. I know what happened. I'm sorry that you lost X, Y, and Z, but I'm excited by the fact that you understand trauma, period,
Right.
because you
Yeah.
can't help me if you don't, in my mind, personally. Yeah. So, and I also challenge myself with, and then even with this, like, so I have, because I didn't have a mom, right?
Hmm.
And I do have issues with female relationships. When I say have issues with female relationships, I normally steer from them. And don't get me wrong,
Hmm.
I'm a people person, but as far as
Yeah.
letting women get too close, and I told her, I said, I'm also challenging myself by choosing to have a female therapist.
Right.
Because you have to continue to challenge these beliefs that your body has or your mind has just put in your head because of your experiences. And I
Right.
have great female friends, don't get me wrong, but
Hmm.
largely I'd rather be around a group of men any
Yeah.
day, because they're just like me. They're direct. They don't play games. They like to have fun, largely. And then that's
Mhm.
generalizing, but you
Yeah.
know, so
Interesting. So this is something that's kind of a new thought for me. When I started doing the podcast, someone mentioned to me having uh some kind of therapy with my mom and asking me if I thought she would go for that. And the thought never occurred to me that I would seek therapy to improve communication with my mom. Do you have any thoughts on this? I'm just kicking it out there because this was a new concept for me, but this marriage and family therapist explained absolutely that there are people who come in with their, daughters come in with their moms for a variety of reasons to get counseling. Is that something that you would ever entertain? Do you think it would have helped you and your mom if she was open to it? What are your thoughts on that?
So I almost have to, when you keep saying me and my mom, like I never think again, when you talk about relationships and my mother, it's just not something I think about. Those two are like not in the same sentence. You know what I mean? Almost like she was my mother and I love her. I loved her as a mother in an agape way, a godly
Yeah,
way. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
I can't associate a motherly love, motherly daughterly love
That's
with
just
her
not even on
per
your
se.
radar to even
It was never, yeah,
entertain.
never instilled, never, yeah, never. It's just something that doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't speak to me at all. I can't identify with it, you know?
Uh,
Now, when you mentioned it for you,
mhm.
I I think it's a great idea, but I almost cringe because and my first thought would be
I cringe
you
too.
would have to no, you would and I'm not saying, and I am not a therapist. I am not a therapist in any way, shape, or form, but I think it would be vital that you both, if you're seeing the same person, see her separately first because she's going to have to mediate. Because I don't care what you say, mom
Yeah,
is going to come in there as mom
and be
on
mom
from
and dominate as
from the get go. Yes. And
uh,
so what's going to have to happen is she's going to have to equalize that some kind of way. So I wouldn't walk in the door first day with me and my mom other than saying, hey, this is what we'd like to do, X,
mhm,
Y, and Z. But we like to be seen separately first. And when you think we're ready to come together, let's
yeah.
do that. But that has to be a plan. That yeah,
You know
for
what? You
sure.
just reminded me. Um, that is a dynamic that I feel often. It's so weird because I'm grown with my own grown kids, right? But I
Hmm.
feel like in the presence of my mom, sometimes I revert back to just this kid. And I feel like that might be a bone of contention in our relationship because that is how I feel, no fault of hers, in
Hmm.
certain instances when we're talking about something and she is taking the dominant mother role and I'm fighting against feeling like the child and in a sense rebelling strictly off of the fact that I don't like this dominant. And it just dawned on me like, yeah, I mean, I know I had this conversation about something else. We were talking to some college friends, and we were, we're 30 years outside of college at this point, and talking about how when all the classmates come back together, you go back to these reunions, it's almost like you revert back to who you were when you were in college, which is
Yeah.
ridiculous
Yeah.
because we have lived a whole life since then, and we were kids.
Right.
But that's just interesting to me. I'm gonna have to ask some professionals about that.
Yeah. I mean, more power to you. I think it would be great. I mean, if that's something you guys want to resolve, because I think you've been working on it for a while and, to this point, you're still in the same space, right? And that's what I talk
Yeah,
about.
because there's just that ceiling that we just can't break through. And I don't have the tools or the experience to do it, which is why I was even thinking about what professional or expert help would look like in that instant.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is goes back to my comment about that unbiased third
Yeah.
party that's educated enough in this field to be able to help you. And I tell you, there are so many like light bulb moments that I've had in therapy sessions where I'm like, oh, you know what? I never even thought that. That never occurred to me, because I didn't. I only know what I know. And like I said, they were pulling in ideas. Well, did you ever think about this? Or did you? Oh my gosh, man, that's a good one. And
Yes,
then I have to sit and think about it and realize that could be the answer. So
absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah. So then it becomes fun. I'm like, oh, okay. So look, this is the situation. And we talk and we go like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and again, the other thing I would say is, especially our community, there is this stigma. My whole philosophy is screw what other people think about
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Um, and I think Malcolm Gladwell's book that was it's called Blink, when he
Mhm.
talked about thin slicing, right?
Right.
Um, as soon as you walk in the door, people have already thin sliced you, meaning they basically judged you based on whatever their history and trauma and thoughts and opinions and political party is. They've already thin sliced you. So who cares what they think? Be you, be
Right.
uniquely you in your own skin and move on with what you want to do as long as it's safe and healthy.
Yeah. Absolutely. That is awesome. And
Oh,
I I think we're about done. Is there anything else that's on your mind or heart that you want to share before we wrap this all the way up? Did I miss
no,
anything?
no. I mean, I couldn't say because I literally just came,
You just showed
prepared
up
to
just
respond. I
for
just showed up. I mean, it's my story, right? It's not going to change. So it's not like I had to prep. It's just like,
well,
yeah, it is
it's
what it
a
is.
compelling story. I really hope in the future to see some type of documented story, because it would be amazing and beneficial to people. You know, we started out saying how you think you're the only one going through things, which is what got me down this line with this interest in this podcast as it is. But it is
Mhm.
so important and beneficial to let other people know you are not alone. Others have gone through things and triumphed and
Yes.
overcome. And you don't have to end where you started. There's help, there's opportunity. So it's a whole world beyond your
Absolutely.
circumstances. And I just love and applaud the fact that you're so energetic and engaged in your own health and therapy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm certain there's a bunch of people going through therapy who aren't reading the books and the studies about brain activity and health and how it all works together like you are. But that speaks to
Yeah.
your level of natural curiosity.
And commitment. It's commitment, really. It really
Yeah.
is commitment. Commitment to just being well, being better than I was
Absolutely.
before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for
Thank
your time.
you.
I'm so glad we got
Thank
to
you.
get together.
I love you.
I love you, Beetle, Beetle, Beetle. Beetle's story reminds us that our past does not define our future. It's a powerful testament to the human capacity for healing, growth, and transformation. Her journey shows us that with self awareness, support, and intentional effort, we can break cycles of trauma and create the loving, supporting environments we always deserve. To our listeners, your story matters, your healing matters, and you have the power to write a different narrative for yourself and your family. I'm Kim Michelle, and thank you for joining us on The Motherly Shift. Please be sure to like, follow, share, and subscribe. Also, follow the Motherly Shift podcast on Facebook and Instagram. And feel free to contact us directly via email at themotherlyshiftpodcast@gmail.com. Have a wonderful week.